The story of Jeremy Fragrance is legit insane. You won't believe how much this guy has changed in just a few years after he decided to betray the loyal fans who built him up. There was a time when Jeremy Fragrance was untouchable, the man in the sharp white suit, spinning on camera with an aura of perfection, a model turned scent prophet who made you feel the fragrance through the screen.
This is a dark rebel rider, which smells like a Harley Davidson man. It smells like tobacco, leather, and whiskey. And this one, Spice Bomb. This smells like an explosion of spices, super dominant, super aggressive, but super bold and somehow sexy.
He was magnetic, confident, addictively strange. Every word he said carried weight. His recommendations could sell out entire perfume lines overnight. And that's because he made you believe he was one of you, authentic, passionate, a man who built a following of millions and touched their hearts in a way that billion-dollar brands never could. But that was before everything collapsed. Today, what you will see is a man losing his grip on reality, and also the grip on the audience that made him.
The smell of pizza. Okay, let's smell it. I want to have sex with this pizza.
The same followers who once called him the fragrance god would later label him a scammer, narcissist, and a madman. So what happened? How did the most recognizable face in the fragrance community, a man who could sell air and still make you believe it was luxury, lose everything? His reputation, his company, his health. It all began with money. At the height of his fame, Jeremy Fragrance had built an audience that trusted him like a brother. They believed every word, every smile, every "I love you guys." So when he told them he needed help, that his laptop was broken and he couldn't keep making videos, people didn't hesitate. They rushed to his Patreon, donating whatever they could so he could keep the channel alive. It felt genuine, it felt real. A creator asking for support and fans showing up for him. But just weeks later, that illusion shattered. Out of nowhere, Jeremy posted a video, not of a new fragrance review, not of gratitude, but of himself proudly buying a red Ferrari 458 Italia, a car worth over $350,000. The same man who claimed he couldn't afford a laptop was now revving the engine of a supercar, laughing, posing, spinning like he'd just won the lottery. And that hit his followers like a slap. The man they helped didn't need help at all. Comment sections exploded. Wait, wasn't this guy broke? Did we just pay for his Ferrari? Jeremy stayed silent. Then he started deleting the angry comments, blocking fans who questioned him. The fragrance community turned on him overnight. What was once admiration turned into disgust. And that single moment, the Ferrari reveal, exposed something deeper. He was becoming someone who thought he is above all, not a brother. The trust that took years to build evaporated in one rev of that engine. But that wasn't the end. Because once you betray people's trust for money, it never stops there. And Jeremy was planning to milk his audience once again, on a much bigger scale. If the Ferrari broke trust, this shattered everything else. After the backlash, Jeremy tried to rebuild his image, saying he wanted to give something back to the community. That something became Fragrance One, his own perfume brand. He launched it through crowdfunding. The fans were the investors, the ones who built his empire brick by brick. Despite his initial betrayed fans still responded positively, giving him another chance. Within weeks, Jeremy raised over 800,000 euros, making it the most successful fragrance crowdfunding campaign in history. It was a record-breaking show of faith. People believed this was his redemption, that he was finally creating something meaningful. But then, it happened again. Right after the campaign ended, Jeremy announced that the price of his perfume would triple, from $160 to over $500 a bottle.
Fumes.
Why the price of my fragrance will be tripled soon. Fragrances to me are like an art form, and some cars to the extent are also an art form. And what does a car manufacturer do? They produce a very small amount of cars to make them exclusive. We will also produce a small amount to
He said his fragrance was like art, that its value was beyond money, a collector's item, a masterpiece. The problem, however, is that he openly admitted the production cost was just around $6 per bottle.
First, you buy the glass bottle. The glass bottle is about 50 cents, 50.
Then you got the sprayer right here. This is another 50 cents. So we're at a $1. Then you got the cap. This is another 50 cents. Then you got the box around it, which is another 50 cents. So you're at $2 now for this empty stuff. You need the juice inside. The juice is the most expensive one. It's about $3. So 3 plus 2 is $5. And then you pay for the whole packaging. So it must be filled and everything. So that's another $1. So about $6 in total, and you have a finished fragrance.
But Jeremy was justifying the high price by comparing it to a priceless artwork.
As you know, a Picasso painting or some other champagne is also very low in production, but it's not the actual value of it. So don't underestimate the actual value of a fragrance.
Fans felt betrayed. Again, they hadn't funded a dream, they'd funded a delusion. People who once cheered for him now called it the biggest scam in fragrance history. Reviewers ripped into him. Even loyal supporters started refunding their pledges. But Jeremy didn't care. He doubled down. He said, "If you can't afford it, it's not for you."
I wouldn't buy my own fragrance brand to this high price tag of triple of the amount. I'm too much of economical thinking person that I would spend so much money. I know that's crazy. Normally, I wouldn't buy it for such a high price, which I'm going to sell it to.
That one sentence revealed everything. He wasn't talking to his fans anymore. He was talking down to them. The man who once said, "I love you guys," now saw them as customers, nothing more. Even corporate giants, the brands that once paid him millions, would want nothing to do with him. Honestly, this was the biggest mistake he ever made, because karma caught up real quick and everything went downhill for him from here. By now, Jeremy's image was already cracking, and what came next completely detonated his professional reputation. Because when money and ego mix with politics, things rarely end well. At the peak of his career, Jeremy was rubbing shoulders with CEOs, publishers, and major fragrance brands. He had sponsorship deals worth hundreds of thousands. He was everywhere, on TV, in magazines, collaborating with top perfume houses. But then, he made a move that blindsided everyone. In 2021, Jeremy was photographed attending a political event in Germany, standing side by side with Alexander Klein and David Wendels, two figures known for their connections to far-right movements. It was a shocking image. Even more shocking is that Jeremy didn't really know his fans. Fans didn't know if it was a mistake, a stunt, or a statement, but brands didn't wait for clarification. Almost overnight, the corporate world cut him off. Sky Deutschland, Aldi Nord, and even his book publisher, Heel Verlag, all severed ties with him. Sponsorships collapsed one after another. Projects worth over $1 million. Gone.
I've had a big money deal with a German fragrance chain, which would have given me about 300,000 to up to more than $1 million. And it just exploded because I was in a show where I took pictures with multiple people, and one of those guys was a right-wing guy.
Jeremy went public about it later, admitting bluntly that a huge deal just exploded. But he didn't take accountability. Instead, he played the victim, claiming the industry didn't understand his vision. To outsiders, it looked like arrogance. To his audience, it looked like self-destruction. This was the moment the businessman Jeremy Fragrance died, and what replaced him was something far less stable. He lost his sponsors, his credibility, and his connection to the mainstream world. Having access to his loyal fans could have saved him, but he cut that lifeline already, but betraying them repeatedly. And from that point on, his downfall stopped being financial and started becoming personal. Because when the money dried up, his mind started to unravel. When the cameras stopped rolling for brand deals, Jeremy started breaking down. Jeremy's transformation wasn't gradual, it was violent. The man who once looked like a clean-cut model, the picture of health and confidence, started to look haunted. His face grew thinner, his eyes hollow. His energy, once vibrant, turned manic. He moved differently, spoke differently, laughed at nothing. Viewers began noticing it immediately. Comments filled his videos. Is he okay? He looks sick. What happened to Jeremy? Some said burnout, others whispered addiction, that he was using substances to keep up the persona. cocaine, amphetamines, all speculation, but the kind that spreads fast when the evidence is written on your face. And instead of addressing it, Jeremy leaned into the chaos. He started acting even stranger, screaming random words in his videos, spinning uncontrollably, making bizarre hand gestures mid-sentence. He called it performance art. He said he was doing it intentionally for views, but nobody believed that. The same man who once obsessed over perfection now looked like he hadn't slept in days. And every time someone questioned him, he'd smile and say, "I'm the happiest I've ever been." Yet, happiness doesn't make you look hollow. It doesn't make you age 10 years in one. This was the breaking point. The perfect image had finally cracked open, revealing someone desperately trying to convince the world and himself that everything was still fine. But it wasn't, because as his health and mind spiraled, so did his content. And what came next would turn the once fragrance king into a living internet meme. When Jeremy's mind started slipping, his content followed. The fragrance reviews that once made him famous, calm, articulate, filled with insight, turned into chaotic bursts of madness. Gone were the thoughtful comparisons of Dior and Creed. Now it was just Jeremy versus Jeremy. He started shouting random phrases, preaching about divine masculinity, flexing in mirrors, and mixing Jesus quotes with sexual monologues. His videos stopped being about sense. They became sermons of confusion. He began wearing a giant cross, claiming he'd found God. He told fans he was living for purity, for purpose. But then, seconds later, he'd say things like, "I want to have sex with this pizza," or talk about drinking human milk and retaining his semen for ultimate power. It was whiplash. Religion one moment, raw chaos the next. The lines between performance and delusion completely blurred. Some people laughed, others felt uncomfortable watching a man publicly unravel. But Jeremy didn't care. He doubled down. He told viewers his bizarre behavior was marketing genius, that he was pushing boundaries, that they just don't get it. Chaos on camera was only half the story, because behind the scenes, Jeremy's private life was about to spiral even darker, into obsession, manipulation, and harassment. As Jeremy's public image crumbled, the cracks in his private life started to show, and what came out shocked even his most loyal followers. For years, fans thought his awkward flirtations on camera were part of his eccentric personality. The weird comments, the over-the-top compliments, the alpha male bravado. But then, messages started leaking. Model Sarah Harris came forward with screenshots, private conversations that revealed a very different side of Jeremy Fragrance. The texts were aggressive, manipulative, and deeply inappropriate. He pressured her for intimate favors, tried to control her responses, and when she refused, he turned vicious. He told her she needed to blow a man now to get your validation back. When the messages went public, Jeremy didn't deny them. He performed around them. He acted like it was all misunderstood humor, but then more women came forward, all with the same pattern: unwanted messages, sexual coercion, and controlling behavior hidden behind his religious mask. He would tell women he wanted a Christian wife, then ask disturbing sexual questions like, "Will you swallow my semen? Yes or yes, babe?" And when they confronted him, he flipped the narrative, claiming they were hurting him. He messaged Sarah again, saying she had pushed him into depression, that he was thinking about ending it all because of what she did. It was textbook manipulation, guilt, shame, and emotional blackmail, all wrapped in fake vulnerability. The same man who preached purity and self-control on camera was using religion as a smokescreen for control and exploitation. The fragrance community, already exhausted by his scandals, had enough. Jeremy wasn't just weird anymore. He was dangerous, and while his reputation was already hanging by a thread, the next betrayal would cut it completely. Because the next person he'd deceive wasn't a fan or a woman, it was his own brother. For years, Jeremy's brother Camille Bank had been the quiet force behind the scenes, the one handling logistics, managing sales, and keeping the Fragrance One brand running, while Jeremy soaked up the spotlight. Camille wasn't chasing fame, he just wanted the business to work. But working with Jeremy was like walking on glass. Every day was a new outburst, a new idea, a new spiritual revelation that somehow became everyone else's problem. Then, one day, without warning, Jeremy made a shocking announcement. He was shutting down the company. No meeting, no discussion, no notice. He simply told the world that Fragrance One was over, leaving Camille completely blindsided. When Camille reached out for answers, Jeremy brushed him off with vague talk about bureaucracy and creative freedom. But the real reason seemed obvious. Jeremy had spiraled so far into ego and paranoia that he couldn't trust anyone, not even his own blood. Camille later said Jeremy fired him with one brutal sentence: "Camille, you're out." Just like that, years of work, loyalty, and brotherhood vanished.
What happened is, in May of this year, maybe some of you remember, Jeremy decided to close down the brand. And he did that in a way where he would just go online, as he always does, post a video about it, and then people were asking me like, "What's going on, Camille?" And I said, honestly, I have no idea.
And it seemed like Jeremy was starting to keep his brother out of the loop with what he was doing with the company, just because he wasn't supporting Jeremy's weird behavior.
Jeremy's original reasoning about it was that he wants to be more creative again, he wants to be an artist, and wants to have less bureaucracy. His version of bureaucracy is me being concerned about his mental health and also his effect on the business, to be honest, because the way he's been doing things over the last couple of months and years have not been doing well.
But this time, Jeremy's arrogance backfired spectacularly. Instead of disappearing, Camille took what was left of the company stock and built something new, a brand called Sense with Benefits. Affordable, transparent, honest. And the community rallied behind him instantly. The same fans who once idolized Jeremy now supported Camille, praising him for his professionalism and calling him the real fragrance one. It was poetic justice. While Camille rebuilt from the ashes, Jeremy clung to the past, still making videos pretending the brand's closure was a marketing strategy. He used it as clickbait, spinning the same narrative over and over, hoping to squeeze out one last drop of attention. But no one was buying it anymore. Not the fans, not the brands, not even his family. And at that point, there was nothing left to betray but himself. Because what came next was the final act, the total collapse of Jeremy Fragrance. Today, Jeremy Fragrance isn't the man he once was. The confident model who stood in white suits, spinning with effortless charm, he's gone. What's left is a caricature, trapped inside a version of himself that he can't escape. His videos are a loop. The same slogans, the same poses, the same "I love you guys." Each one feels like a desperate echo of a past life. The ghost of a creator who once changed an entire industry. He still posts daily, but it's all noise now. There's no meaning, no growth, just self-promotion disguised as spirituality. Every clip ends with a product pitch. Every smile feels rehearsed. The audience sees it. They've seen it for years. And instead of admiration, there's only pity. People remember Prime Jeremy, the man who could describe a scent so vividly you'd swear you could smell it through the screen. They miss that version of him, the one who inspired them, made them care about fragrance, made them believe in passion. But that Jeremy doesn't exist anymore. He's burned every bridge, with fans, with brands, even with his family. His empire didn't collapse overnight. It decayed slowly, one betrayal at a time, until all that remained was a man in a white suit yelling into a camera, trying to convince himself he's still on top. In the end, the downfall wasn't caused by haters, the industry, or bad luck. It was caused by him, by his ego, by his need to be worshipped instead of loved. And that's the tragedy of Jeremy Fragrance. He didn't just deceive his audience, he deceived himself.